Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Gruesome and Grotesque video. As always, I just do these videos randomly when I come across something that I read online, either through the Google News app or in this case, through something that I saw on Reddit. Now, a few years back, I did a video that still traumatizes me to this day. It's the one involving that poor situation of that cave diver, a guy by the name of John Jones, who ended up getting trapped inside the cave, and his body is still there to this day. It's actually my most viewed video of all within my entire channel. If you haven't had a chance, just look at it there on my search function and then you'll be able to find it. But the reason why I bring that up is because this article that I read on Reddit actually has to do with a similar situation, but it involves 4 people, 2 men, 2 women, who ended up dying within a cave itself, and the cave was sealed afterward. Now, their bodies were found, they were taken out, but much of it, again, links to the previous story involving John Jones. In fact, you're looking at a representation of it now. It's known as the tragedy of Gollum's Cave or the Cave of Death. Very memorable names associated with those caves too. So let's go ahead and let's share that information here, and then I'll give my thoughts and opinions. Overall, still a very horrible way for someone to go, and it still makes me wonder why people do these things when it comes to going into these caves. But here's what happened. For starters, let me just give a brief history associated with the cave. This is a cave that was found there in Provo, Utah. So some of you that are there, you know more about the locale. Let me know. Post it in the comments below. Apparently, it was known by just a few people there. Like, it wasn't known too well by the public, let alone anyone else outside of that area, but apparently some city officials knew about it as well. But the people that did know happened to be a lot of the adventurous type, the younger folks. They were there, and it became a cave of notoriety. Again, it got the name associated with it, 2 of them involving Gollum's Cave. I'm guessing that it's tied to the Lord of the Rings Gollum, and then also the Cave of Death. It was one of those locations where it's almost like a dare thing. Like, people would go out there, they would make a trek, they would go into the cave, specifically because there's a point there where you reach an inner cave that is very claustrophobic, but that's the whole point, apparently. Like, you go there, you reach it, you've reached your goal, and then you come out. Apparently, it's gone enough trips that there was a rope that was attached within the cave as well, because part of the cave, it not just involves darkness and claustrophobia, but also involves passing a lot of water. And so somebody somewhere ended up putting a rope within it as a guidance of sorts, and then that's why the cave again gained some notoriety. But either way, though, the locale knew it, and this is what happened, at least what led to that fateful day. So this was back on August 17th, 2005. There were a total of 5 friends there that decided to go visit that cave. It was Ariel Singer, Jennifer Lynn Galbraith, J. Blake Donner, Scott McDonald, and then also Steve Hundley. Now, 5 of them went, but 4 of them actually ended up going into Gollum's Cave. One of them wisely decided to stay out of it, although there's still some conflicting information. By the way, the info that I present here, some of it may be correct, some of it may still be outdated, some of it may be questioned. There's a lot of conflicting info with regards to what I was reading through multiple websites. So take it as you will, and then see if you can come up with your own information or your own decision afterward. But they decided to go there in the dead of night. This was after dinner. They went there apparently at around 3 a.m. So already it's off to a bad start, because it's in the dead of night. Anything serious happens and nobody's going to be around. I mean, who you're going to have that's nearby that can react quickly to something like this. But either way, though, apparently one of the people there, one of the girls, decided that they wanted to go see it. Like, they even claimed that they were there previously before. They almost passed out within the cave, but they wanted to go there again. Again, it was an adventurous thing. It was something where it's a fun night, you wanted to have some excitement, and there was this cave nearby. And so they decided to go there. And when they went there, again, only 4 of them ended up going inside the cave. The guy that did not end up going into the cave but was still with them at the time was that guy, Joseph Ferguson. So they ended up going there, at least to that cave. The four of them went. And then when they went there, everything was A-OK at first. Apparently, the idea was they would enter the cave and then they would pull on the rope. Like somewhere, I guess, within that cave itself, the rope extends to a certain point where somebody could still be, I guess, within the cave, but without being totally inside of it, like all the way in. Like I'm guessing that rope extends a little bit outward. And then once that rope was pulled, it would be an indication for that friend to be able to come in as well, and then there'll be 5 of them in total. But in any case, Joseph decided not. He decided that even though he entered the cave, or at least again, the conflicting information states that he did enter the cave, but then he decided to leave right before they reached the water hole. Now, this is the best analysis I could come up with the cave itself. And you'll see here with regards to the actual drawing, and then there's going to be another one that showcases more of it. Apparently, there's the entrance to the cave, and then there's a small, very small area from involving water. Like it's basically you're climbing through it. Like the water is not even deep, and like it's nowhere near deep. Maybe a couple of inches, something like that. But either way, though, once you get to that point, then you're going to trek about 90 feet, and then I believe you're going to be turning left because there is now another pool of water, and this is the more serious one. This one is apparently a pool of water that has 8 feet in diameter. You go into that water, and now all of a sudden you're in a large pool. Like in this case, this is something that measures 3 or 4 feet high. It's an underwater passage. This goes about maybe 21 feet or so in total, 15 feet at the lowest end, but 21 feet with regards to the entire thing. And then finally, it gets you to the inner cave, the one I was mentioning earlier. That's the one, that's the goal. Once you go into that inner cave, it apparently houses 6 to 8 people, and there's only a couple of inches. Although I was reading somewhere it's a couple of inches, and then another one it was reading a couple of feet of space, like when it comes to air getting up from the water and moving about. So in other words, when you're outside, let's say you go into that cave and then you're submerged, but then you pop out inside that inner cave. That's where you'll have either a few inches up to a couple of feet of actual movement up to the ceiling, and then that's it. In other case, though, it's still a tight enclosure, and now you're going to have 6 to 8 people. In this case, there were 4, but otherwise, the whole idea is you reach it, you stay for just a little bit, and then you trek back afterwards. Well, that was at least the intention. Of course, what happened afterward with the tragedy ended up being the actual result, because somewhere along the way, either they stayed too long, and again, this is where there's conflicting information about what happened. Nobody really knows 100%. There's just theories. Either they stayed too long and they ran out of oxygen, at least enough oxygen to take a big gulp of oxygen and then submerge themselves again and trek the 15 feet back into that area of water that was again 3 to 4 feet high, and then they ran out of oxygen. Or even worse, there was less oxygen than anticipated, and whatever little oxygen there was actually just enough to, it was clouded with something bad. Like there was either some kind of gas, poisonous gas, or something else that had accumulated within that area. And when they realized this, any other gulps of breath that they took was bad. But you couldn't help it. You had to breathe. You had to get oxygen. You had to submerge yourself one more time. And that would unfortunately lead to them now being submerged, but being in a state where they weren't thinking right anymore. There's other theories too that apparently some of them may have brought a candle, lit the candle in there, and then actually created an even a worse situation of oxygen. There's another theory that some of them were apparently drunk or had some kind of drugs with them as well that made the situation worse. None of those seem to come to fruition, though, like when it comes to any evidence. But those are some of the theories. But either way, though, what happened next was one of them, one of the girls that was actually there, which it turned out to be the 18-year-old Ariel. She was apparently the first one to submerge and then try to go back in that underwater passage using the rope and so on. Either way, though, and this is where it gets really bad, she ended up passing away within that underwater passage. And what made things so horrible was apparently the area that she passed away in blocked completely everyone else from being able to go through. So somewhere along the way, this poor girl Ariel, she either didn't have enough oxygen or she became disoriented, because I was reading another article that said somebody, I guess you could call them more of an expert when it comes to going within Gollum's cave or the Cave of Death. They in turn had traversed it several times. They stated that even with the rope and even with just swimming through or going through, you're going to kick up a lot of dirt, and that dirt clouds things. And if you fall off the rope, like in other words, you're no longer touching it, or something happens and you think you're going one way, but now you're going another because of the area there being clouded, you could easily become disoriented, is what he stated. And him, in one occasion, he did become disoriented. And he said, luckily, he was able to trek back to where he thought he was, and it turned out to be correct, and then he was able to get out of there. So somewhere along the way, this poor young girl, 18-year-old Ariel, she in turn either got disoriented, ran out of oxygen, a mixture of both, panicked, who knows, but she ended up drowning right there within that tiny passage right before, I guess, she was able to reach the other end, the one involving that 8-foot diameter entrance to that body of water. And then that in turn ended up clogging the entrance or the exit for the rest of the group. Can you just imagine the panic associated with them, because they're trying to get through, they can't, and now things are probably just being kicked so much left and right that the water inside would have been just completely cloudy. Maybe some of them reached the entrance, like the back of the area involving that inner cave, and then decided to give it one more try. Maybe others decided to try to go through all the way. But either way, though, the rest of them, all three of them, did not make it through. And the way that the bodies were found and the examination was done, they were all facing the same direction, which tells the investigators and everyone else that was looking into it that they were heading towards one spot. But something was again preventing them, and that was the situation involving that poor young girl, that 18-year-old Ariel. The other scenario is that they would have gone back to the actual inner cave and stayed there as long as they could, but obviously with such a tight space and so little oxygen, and every bit of it becoming less and less with every second, then they would have eventually ran out and they would have drowned right there as well. In pitch black darkness, in a claustrophobic area, knowing that there's no way to get out now. I tried to find more information as to how, like, if there was a scenario with Ariel being, I guess, in an area that she was not able, like it was not able to allow the rest of the group to leave, like where that happened or how that happened. But you got to remember too that these caves, they're not made for just walking through. You would have had to have squiggled through one area, like basically pushed yourself through. It's this thrill, I guess, that these cave divers have when it comes to seeing these very, very tight openings and then just trying to wiggle through. Like there's an energy within them that just excites them to see that. And so something like this with regards to this situation and her being stuck, poor Ariel, you can just imagine that there was no way, that they would have tried everything to get through, but there would have been no way at all. And so they were basically doomed to their end right at that point. Now, more speculation as to it involving bad air leads to this. Apparently there was an analysis done involving the amount of oxygen concentration in that area, and it was only at 19%. So that leads to the theory at that time that where they submerged and then got out, and that inner cave would have been bad air, bad oxygen, or poisonous even, and so they would have not had enough oxygen to get back. So them going on that single trek on that fateful night at 3 a.m, and then that friend deciding not to do it, that basically saved his life, because they were 100% doomed the minute they went in, even with all the previous experience and having gone through apparently some of them have gone through themselves. This was just a bad night when it came to what happened to them, and apparently I believe it too. It had to do with the oxygen that was within that location. That essentially caused everything as far as this calamity and then this tragedy afterward. But let me know what you guys and gals think as far as this situation. Anyone know more information on the local level, let me know. If you're wondering what happened to that cave too, the reason why I picked it as well is because there's another similarity to the tragedy of John Jones. The cave ended up being sealed. Obviously, after four young people ended up losing their lives, the cave was sealed. It was sealed with cement. No more people could go inside. And then to this day, there's this plaque that you're looking at now that's dedicated to them in memory of those that perished within the cave itself. But otherwise, that's the whole history, that everything associated with the tragedy of Gollum's cave, i.e., the cave of death. Let me know what you guys and gals think again with regards to this. Anyone out there that's a cave diver too, let me know why. Like, why is it that people decide to do this? I'm not claustrophobic by nature. Like, I can be in some pretty tight spots and I'm okay. But anything involving extreme situations like this, that's a big no to me. Like, that's not something that I would ever put myself through, even if it's quote unquote safe. All it needs is one situation like this night for everything to go wrong at the exact time, and then it leads to something like this. But let me know what you guys and gals think. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.